Hello, and welcome to another episode of goTeach. I am Val Hill Jackson, the principal investigator and co executive director of Brazos Valley Teach. I'm here today with our guest, Miss Monica Oliver, with the Texas Association of Future Educators, or TAFE for short. Monica is the state program director, and we're going to have a great conversation today. Welcome, Monica.
Thank you for having me here today. I'm excited to talk to you today about TAFE.
We appreciate your time. Let's get started with maybe a little bit about yourself, Monica. Share a little bit of background and maybe a nice special story so we can get to know you.
Sure. I actually graduated from Texas Tech University in 2007 with a degree in family consumer sciences education. And I taught at Round Rock High School for 15 years. And I was fortunate enough to find my passion for advising and guiding and mentoring not just new teachers, but veteran teachers and mentoring them along their path. And I did that and found that through teaching education and training courses and sponsoring a chapter of Texas Association of Future Educators. It's kind of funny to kind of be reflective and be in this role now because I come from a family of educators and I did not want to be a teacher. So I wanted to stay away from being a teacher. My uncle and my aunt not only are administrators, but are professors my aunt was a professor at Baylor University for a while. So just lots of cousins and things. And I just realized when my mom didn't earn her college degree until I was in high school.
Right.
And she did that through human resources at St. Edward's University. And she would talk to me about these classes. And they were all about people and connecting with people and how people think and do when they're working. And I just realized I have this passion to help people and I needed something to kind of give me an outlet in doing that. And that was teaching. And so that's kind of a little bit about me and why I got into education and how I ended up into this role as the program director for TAFE.
Well, it sounds like education was your destiny for sure.
I think so. It's kind of funny. I didn't think so at the time, but it is. And it wasn't until student teaching really that I just fell in love with it. So,
Well, we're glad you made that decision. Let's talk about TAFE. Can you talk to us about sort of the mission and the vision of the TAFE organization and how it got started?
Sure. So we're an organization founded by the Texas Association of Secondary School Principals, and we were founded in 1984. And they have a board of directors who kind of govern TASSP. And they realized that eventually there was going to be a teacher shortage. And how do we address teacher shortage? And so having an opportunity for students to explore education as a career choice is really what they needed. And they needed to connect with those high school kids right before they go off into college and declare a major. And so TAFE was founded. And so that's really what we were there for, is we just kind of give the students the opportunity to explore education as a career choice, not only teaching, but all the roles that support a school district, right? So counselors, paraprofessionals, administrators, that kind of thing. And so we're just there. And not only that, but service and allowing students to grow in their leadership abilities as well, anywhere from middle school all the way up to the collegiate level.
Wow. Sounds like that this vision that happened almost 40 years ago now,
Yes.
they really had foresight into sort of predicting this real need with the teacher shortage. But before we dive into a conversation about the teacher shortage, can you talk to us about sort of how TAFE sort of happens in terms of those education and training classes? Because there are a lot of these education and training classes on the books through what are called the career and technical education program. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So we are fortunate to be one of an organization in Texas or across the nation called CTSO, which is a career and technical student organization. And so TAFE is a program that can be run what we call co-curricular, meaning that all of our contests and our competitions that students can compete in align with a TEAC or a standard that is in the education and training pathway. And
Okay.
so they're allowed to For example, lesson plan and delivery is one of our competitions. And so students would write a lesson plan, then teach it at a local field site school, whether that's middle school or elementary, and then film themselves teaching it and then reflect back on the process. What went well, what didn't go well, what I do differently. And so when they come to competition, they're showing, here's my lesson plan, here's what went well, here's not. And it's a whole reflection process so they can gain better skills of being an educator.
I imagine that folks listening to us right now, Monica, are thinking, what? Competitions?
Yes.
So these are courses that are already on the books.
Yes.
With Texas high schools.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about those courses and how these competitions happen at different levels?
Yes.
Can you talk about that a bit?
I can. The education and training courses, there are principles of education and training, human growth and development, child development, instructional practices, and practicum in education and training. And so students at the high school level take those courses one a year, and earn credits, and they use those courses to learn the foundations in education as well as what skills are necessary to be a quality educator.
Okay.
And we provide competitions that align and to help them teach those concepts and those skills. So our students, our high school chapter teacher that has a TAFE chapter would take their kids to our area conference. So the Brazos Valley area is our area 5. And so our area 5 conference would happen, and those students would create a project that outlines those skills and then go to area conference and compete against other students within the Brazos Valley area. If they advance and qualify, they compete at our state level. So now they're competing against kids in the same event across the state of Texas.
Right.
So over 2,000 students essentially attend our state conference. From that level, if they still master those skills, they qualify again, they compete at the national level against other states who offer the same competitions. It's 3 levels of areas that they're getting feedback from college professors, retired teachers, and counselors and other teachers across, not just from their area or their school district, but across the nation. And that's valuable skills they can take and then use each year, and then eventually till they become an educator, because we don't know what one piece of information or feedback a student's going to get and latch on to.
Right. Monica, earlier you were sharing a story about your mom and certain courses she was taking, how passionate she was, and how folks like your mom really encourage you to go into the field of education. And I'm thinking about those education and training classes that are on the books that not a lot of folks are aware of, because they're a great sort of on-ramp, if you will, for folks who may be trying to explore, our young people who want to explore the field of education. But I like what you said earlier, that it takes a special kind of teacher leader to be in those courses. And, you've had some experience interacting with many teacher leaders, I imagine. And what are those characteristics that you think sort of stand out that our teacher leaders need to have so that we can onboard more high school students to those courses?
I think it's a combination of being vulnerable and to show students the realistic side while not deterring them. And that's a really fine balance, because, since COVID, there's been a lot of things that have pitfalls of teaching that have been heightened or that we see. And so sometimes it's letting kids know it's a struggle. It really is. And we, there's areas of improvement in our public education system, and that's just across the board. But to let students know, yeah, it's a hard job, but I love it because, or yes, today was difficult, but you made it better because. And I think that that's a big thing. I was fortunate to teach these courses for many years, and I think it's intimidating because you are teaching future teachers while not allowing them to grow their teacher personality, while not implementing your own teacher personality onto them. And so it's just one of those things that it's just a really fine balance of, really good communication skills and being vulnerable, and, realistic expectations, and teaching them here's a real good work-life balance when you're a teacher, and sharing those highs and with reason, sharing those lows, because they need to know that. It prepares them for what they're going to experience if they choose to follow the path.
Yeah. And if they choose to follow the path, having those opportunities in high school really helps them sort of, figure out if this is the field for them,
Yes.
right? Because, on the other end of that, I'm at the university and I see folks who come into education and they figure out somewhere along around, semester 4 or 5 that maybe this isn't for me. But if they get that experience, right,
Yes.
in high school, they can really sort of figure it out earlier on, right?
Yes.
Yeah, really.
Those courses are a fantastic opportunity because they're lab based. And so, for example, Principles of Education and Training has a lab component. Most teachers might pair up with an elementary school and do take their students to volunteer at field day, for example. And that's the first time kids, who've thought since elementary school, oh, I want to be a teacher. That's the first time they're working with kids, and they will instantly know, yes, this is for me, or no, it's not for me. And giving them that exposure as soon as possible in high school is essential, because you're right. A lot of times it's not until they're in college that they get that first experience with a runny nose and they're like, oh, I don't want to deal with this every day. But varying it up, because that those instructional practices and practicum allow for them to explore different grade levels, and they can find out, oh, middle school is what I love, and I
Right.
want to teach a middle schooler, or no, I don't want to deal with the hormones. I'd rather teach,
Mhm.
third grade. That there's just a lot that they can experience at that level where it's safe, and saves them money because they don't end up in university and stuck.
Absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely. It's a great sort of apprenticeship model to
Yes.
figure it out early.
Yes.
Let's talk about, if you will, this real phenomenon that we're looking at right now, the teacher shortage. It looks like the folks at TASSP
Mhm.
figured that out 40 years ago that we were going to be in this situation, right? So, what have you heard about the teacher shortage, and how is it that TAFE is helping us to think this through?
So, lots of talk about teacher shortage, and teacher burnout, and the percentage of how many teachers burn out within the first 5 years.
Mm.
And you're right, it is something we've heard about for a long time. And it's kind of heightened right now.
Mhm.
And I think that partly, and while some people might say, oh, we'll just throw money at it, give teachers more money, that's not going to solve
Right.
a lot of the morale. And I
Mhm.
think a lot of it is morale. And I think a lot of it goes back to an administration.
Mm.
I think we might see some changes come through with some systems put in place at schools, as we see, administrators having to teach classes and seeing what teachers are going through every day, and seeing, oh, that extra piece of paperwork wasn't necessarily needed, right?
Mhm, mhm.
And allowing them we need to get back to the root of just let a teacher teach, versus all of the extra add-ons that get added on sometimes, because it hinders teachers from having a good work-life balance.
Exactly.
But Taffy, while we do have this teacher shortage, we are trying to bring encouragement and excitement into what teaching is, by highlighting how you can show appreciation for the people that help you in your school, like counselors or administrators or administrative assistants or your custodial staff, and how it really does take an entire team
Mm.
to educate a student,
Mhm.
right? It's not just the teacher in the classroom. It's how clean is your school? How well does your librarian work for your students, right? So, and showing students that sometimes it takes a different path to get into the classroom,
Right.
and that there's lots of possibilities, and changing the image of what education is and being a teacher is. I see a lot, and I talk to a lot of different people across the state of Texas about the teacher shortage, and teachers are the worst sellers
Mm.
of going into education. A lot of times I would hear stories from my field site students saying, well, my field site teacher said I shouldn't go into teaching.
Mm.
And I'd say, well, why do you think they said that? Well, today they just had a really hard day. Okay. You
Right.
see maybe
Right.
that sometimes it just feels like, oh, I shouldn't have done this. But also then having a conversation with that teacher, you love your job, right? Oh, I do. Today was just a bad day. Okay. So you have to be aware that sometimes we discourage people from going into it because we struggle with it sometimes.
Right.
But that's in every job.
Every job.
Every single job has its
Mhm.
struggles. And it's just highlighting those things that, yeah, teachers make a difference, teachers make an impact. And I think the first time a student, and that's what Taffy does, is with our competitions, because they go and they work with kids. The first time a kid says, I love you, or you made a difference today, I think is what a lot of my students would come back. Oh, they drew this picture for me, or they gave me this, and it just made that connection instant for them, that they want to repeat. that connection with another student and know they had a lasting impact. And I think as teachers, we need to share those stories more. We tend to be silent troopers and just kind of trug on and say it'll get better the next day. I used to tell my students, keep a file in your desk called a feel goods folder. And any email, any card, any letter, any note you ever get, just put it in that. And then the day you have a bad day, pull it out and review it, because you made a difference at some point, and you will make a difference tomorrow. Today just may be rough.
Yeah, we all should keep that file, shouldn't we? Listen, when you think about the teacher shortage, we need all hands on deck.
Yes.
We need short-term, midterm, long-term solutions. Where does TAFE fit into that?
We are starting with our middle schoolers and having middle schools create chapters of TAFE, so we can catch that 7th and 8th grader that still has an interest right before they get into high school and get bogged down with taking a STAR test, right? How do we capture that excitement still? And then helping them and coaching them with skills and practical application skills throughout high school, but then at the college level, because we do have an offshoot of collegiate chapters. And so that's still providing that support, providing that practical experience, as well as connection. A lot of times kids feel like they're the only one that wants to do something, but when they work and they're with 25 other high schoolers at just their school that just love being a teacher and want to be a teacher, they get excited because they're like, oh, there's other people that like it too. And then when they go to an area conference and there's 350 kids at it that love being want to be a teacher or explore it, and then they go to the state and then national level where they're just convening together as groups, continues that excitement, and they learn and they start to build those connections with people across, not only in their area, but across the state and then across the nation. So
appreciate that. I often think that TAFE is the best kept secret when it comes to thinking about long-term solutions for the teaching force. And I think a lot of folks are like me, where we sort of don't understand sort of the connection between, for example, TAFE and Educators Rising and PDK. Can you talk a little bit about your genealogy there?
Yes. So like I mentioned earlier, we were founded by TASSP back in 1984. And so we used to affiliate with a group at the national level called Future Educators of America. And Future Educators of America is just like I have a parent organization. They have a parent organization called PDK International.
Okay.
And so they started a group for across the nation for kids that are interested in becoming educators and giving them the opportunity to explore it. And then back in, I would say, 2012, I think it is, they rebranded and went from FEA, or Future Educators of America, to Educators Rising. And so a lot of people see Texas Association of Future Educators and Educators Rising. They're like, how the heck are those connected? We were a longstanding foundation, an organization prior to that. And so our name is in our constitution, so our name won't change. And so we affiliate nationally with Educators Rising. So all our students and all our teacher leaders are members of Educators Rising. And so that's our national affiliation. So when we attend conferences at the national level, it's with Educators Rising.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. I want to talk now about the special relationship between TAFE and Brazos Valley Teach. For our audience, folks who are listening out there, we made a commitment to partner just this summer in 2022. And so at Brazos Valley Teach, we are an apprenticeship program. We come in through those same courses that TAFE does, those education and training courses at the high school. A lot of folks may not see that sort of natural connection between Brazos Valley Teach and TAFE. Where do you see that connection?
I see that connection in anybody who's beginning an education and training program at their campus level. There's need for assistance. It's kind of can be a little bit overwhelming when you're taking on essentially creating a Future Educators Academy, is kind of how I view it. And how do I begin, and where do I start, and where do I get resources? And I see that connection in TAFE allowing that connection of, well, here's resources through competitions. Here's how to allow your students to have projects to, base their skills off of, as well as you're providing, Brazos Valley Teach provides those students, and teachers guidance. Here's what the course looks like. Here's what you end. Here's, you can get this educational aid certification, and letting them know of resources. But not only that, but as a connection to other resources that they may not be aware of, not only in their area, but outside of their area, outside
Right.
of something they might, outside of their scope. But I also see that as a connection of, hopefully eventually, in time, we'll be able to partner to, further, and be able to put on, well, here's what are you struggling with, what in this particular class. Okay, well, let's put something together to help you, so that you don't have that problem in the future, and not just deter people from feeling overwhelmed, but
Mhm.
making them feel, oh, this is manageable.
Mhm.
Oh, this is easier. And I think also that part of that is, as we do see the teacher shortage, and we do know counselors are removed and going back into the classroom to teach because they have those vacancies, some of those things that you take on
Right.
are what counselors used to do.
Right.
And so sometimes teachers get lost and they feel flustered because they don't know, rulings change in TEA, or how does this work? And so we work together to provide that information for those teachers so they don't feel lost.
That's exactly right. The work that we do at Brazos Valley Teach is to provide the guidance, resources, and support for high school students, as well as for the counselors and the teacher leaders. And you guys have been doing that for a very long time. So
Yes.
we are absolutely in good company.
Yes.
As we sort of close out our conversation today, I'd like for you to think about TAFE 10 years from now. Right.
Okay.
Where are you and what are you doing as an organization?
It's a little overwhelming, to kind of think of where Taffy will be in 10 years or in 5 years. I'm hoping that there's more knowledge, of what we provide for our teachers and for our students, and opportunities that they can essentially extend their classroom out into their community. And that more people are just aware of what we offer. I think right now Taffy is one of the smaller CTSOs that's out there, but one that is specific for education. And so I think that in 10 years, we're going to be busting at the seams, is what I hope. And, we have just so many kids that are competing, and so many kids that are, making it out to the national level. And then, seeing our students as a high school kid in Taffy, maybe teaching at a high school in an education and training program and with their own Taffy chapter would just be amazing. So, just helping expose more kids to what it's like to be a teacher, and providing those skills along the way in 10 years. So
Thank you. Thank you for that. I think you and I stand united in thinking that teaching is the best profession on the planet.
yes, I agree.
Thank you for your time today, Monica Oliver,
Thank you.
State Program Director of TAFE. So to all those young people out there who want to be future educators, we want you to go be amazing. Go think about being a teacher. Go be a mentor. Go teach.